We are continuing with chapter 42. Chapter 42, we are speaking about the fact that we have been gifted something by Moshe Rabbeinu, by Moses, as one of the 7 shepherds. A shepherd takes care of his flock. Moses and all of the 7 holy, righteous shepherds take care of their flock of the Jewish people and feed them. Feed them something that's unique about them, that they were in their divine service, and gave that to us as an inheritance to our soul. It's a part of our soul, the makeup of our soul. And in that sense, we have a piece of Moses in us. And in every generation, there is the extension of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses, that gives us what he originally gave us. And what was that? What would we explain? It was about das. The word das, or da'at, depending if you speak Ashkenazic or Sephardic Hebrew, is the capability of attaching ourselves to not only understand about God and to know God, but to actually feel some sense of godliness in your being, where you sense a sense of being united and bound up with God. Now that's present in our soul. That's a makeup of our soul, no doubt. Again, by virtue of the fact, as we mentioned, that we have a piece of, so to speak, of Moses in us, as it were. And therefore, we're capable of having that kind of connection, which is unbelievable. Now, the Alter Rebbe puts I wouldn't call this a damper on it at all, but he does say that, well, it is dependent on something. In other words, just the very fact that it's a part of our soul doesn't mean that it's something that we will realize, that we will experience. A sense of being connected, feeling godliness, not feeling your love, not feeling your devotion. It's about you, but about feeling something greater than us, right? That connection. So the Alter Rebbe says, well, for it to really appear in us in a real way, being that, don't forget, our soul is in a body, and our body has a different agenda. Body doesn't want to feel godliness, doesn't want to feel connection to divine, not at all. It wants to have physical pleasure, devoid of anything abstract, spiritual, godly. And even if the animal soul, that's the body, the animal soul too wants, but it wants for its self-aggrandizement, for it to feel good rather than be good, the feel good. That's what it wants. That's not godliness. So we have to be careful that we don't fool ourselves, because it's easy to fool ourselves and feel that, oh, well, I feel these things. I feel it could be a feel-good thing and not a real true sense of godliness. How to make that distinction? We'll get there. I'll give some insight into that. But in order that we should not allow the agenda of the body, which is au contraire from the soul, that it should get in the way. So the Alter Rebbe says there's 2 things that need to be done. We have to exert the flesh. We have to weaken its corporeality. Its reality is corporal. We have to weaken that. As we mentioned in chapter 29 and earlier, quoting the Zohar, about a log that's too thick to put into the bonfire, so you gotta splinter it. So likewise, the body needs to be humbled. What does it mean the body needs to be humbled? Well, I'll give you an example right now. You might be hungry, and you might say to yourself, well, I'm going to learn Tanya at the same time, which, by the way, is a possible thing to do. And it's not a bad thing, actually, in a way. It's an amazing thing. But you know what's even more amazing? is that if you're capable of doing this, humbling the body and say, you know what? I'm not listening to your need right now and your desire, and I am going to learn Tanya truly focused. Now, if you're not really able to focus and you really need to eat, then do please eat while you're learning Tanya. Absolutely. But if you're capable of this, humbling the body and not allowing its agenda to get, the better of you, what we call in Western thought, delayed gratification. But delayed gratification means that you're doing a mitzvah in itself instead of gratifying yourself in another way, right? You might delay one gratification of eating, but then the other gratification is I'm, I don't know, speaking Lashon Hara, speaking ill or whatever. So I'm getting gratification elsewhere, right? So no, delayed gratification, you're doing a mitzvah, right? What are you doing at that time, delaying your gratification? You're going against the nature of the body. That's humbling the body. So that needs to be part of our life, part of our world, if we want to be attuned to the soul. Because if we always give in to the gratification of the body, then there's no way we could be attuned to the soul. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. Another form of delayed gratification, that's delayed gratification. Another form of what it means humbling the body. I think I've told this story before. A friend of mine, before he had bar mitzvah, and he went into the Rebbe for a yechidus private audience. So the Rebbe explained to him, what does it mean, the humbling of the body. So he says to the 13-year-old that when you have two apples before you, take the lesser quality one. Because the body, what does it want? The nicest, the shiniest, the one that looks the yummiest. That's what the body wants. Imagine if you don't take that one. Imagine, you even gave that to another person. So, or even if you didn't, you just took the lesser quality one. What is that statement saying? That statement is saying is that my body's desire is not going to rule me. Yeah, I'm going to eat. It's not that you're not going to eat. We're not talking about here not eating. We're talking about not giving the body its gratification that it really wants. That's amazing that you can do that. We can do that. But the most important point over here the Alter Rebbe wants to bring out is by doing that, you are allowing your soul to find greater self-expression. Because, remember, your soul is in your body. And it is confined and restricted by the body. And if the body is in control, then, the soul won't have an experience of being connected. You won't be able to feel a sense of godliness. That's the first point. Second point, he says, is that we need to now exert the soul. That was the exertion on the body, on the flesh. Now we have to exert the soul. How? By contemplating, by thought, reflecting on the greatness of God for some kind of time period that, gives us a sense of real connection. It needs a measure of time. And this is not easy. I must confess, I'm not good at this. I am not personally good at this. To take a measure of time, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or longer. Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe can meditate on the greatness of God, their relationship to God, God's presence in the world, the realness of God. An hour, 2 hours, hours and hours, actually. They were so, capable of that. And as the Alter Rebbe says, the refined soul will be able to meditate very quickly and sense a presence of God that brings him into, as we've explained, God is standing over us. He sees our actions, and therefore you're overcome by what? Fear. Not fear of punishment, fear of presence. God is present. He's seeing what I'm doing. He knows what's inside of me. Not only sees what I'm doing, I can see what someone else is doing. You can see what I'm doing. Well, actually, you're all seeing what I'm doing. I don't see anybody else. But you all see me, right? So that we can do. But do I know what's going on? Do you know what's going on in my heart, in my head? I mean, maybe a little bit, because I'm speaking what I'm speaking, but what's in my heart, we don't know. But God does. God does. So God knows if I'm really exerting myself, if I'm really making the effort, and so on. So if a person will be able to actually think and meditate, and if they're a very lofty soul, so then it won't take them that long that they'll be able to have that sense of presence of God, that will bring them to a sense of trepidation. Again, trepidation in a positive and a healthy way. The presence of another, of God. Right? Now, me, and I think the rest of us really, are not that lofty souls of like the Alter Rebbe. Our generation, not that it's a bad thing, as I've explained at great length, where the truck drivers are going to bring the goods to the stores, bring the goods to the world. What are the goods? Torah mitzvos. What are the goods? Studying Tanya. What are the goods? Another mitzvah, another good deed. And we're going to bring it to the masses. Right? That's what the lower souls do from the world of Asiya. So it just means it's more difficult for us to do those things that are more abstract, that are more spiritual. So we're not able to uncover and discover godliness by contemplation so simply. We have to really exert ourselves, and God knows that. Again, I'm not speaking to any of you. I'm really not. I'm speaking to myself. And this is hard. This is tough, to be able to exert yourself in this manner. And the Alter Rebbe says especially because, the people that were raised in this way and in this fashion, which, today who's raised that way or even raised in a very, in a bubble of Jewish life and of Torah mitzvahs and of holiness. It's not for them to do this, but, we've been defiled by sins of youth. And, even though we may have now gone beyond that, hopefully, I'm sure we have, whoever's here probably definitely is beyond that. But then, nonetheless, the past has an effect on our capability of lifting ourselves up. And therefore, what we need to do is really forcefully make the effort to meditate, contemplate, think about the realness and presence of God. And we can do it. We can definitely do it, the Alter Rebbe says, quoting the sages in the Talmud, only when a person really makes an effort and they have discovered, they have found what they're looking for, right? That sense of presence, then believe that person has really made the effort. And the Alter Rebbe gives this as a metaphor like looking for money or a hidden treasure. If you know you have a hidden treasure in your backyard, what are you going to do? You're going to work like crazy to get it because you know it's there. So Alter Rebbe says, and this is an amazing thing, he believes in us more than we believe in ourselves, that we have a hidden treasure stored inside of us, in our soul. It's buried, because again, we have the body and the animal soul that, is being that we're not righteous, far from, very far from, and therefore it's buried underneath, a lot of dirt, but it's there. That is truly there. It's in every one of our hearts. We just have to dig very deeply. And we're able to get that sense of connection, that it is experienced on some level, that it is real. Basic idea is, though, that ultimately it will at least allow us then to have an effect on our behavior, that we will turn away from doing negative things and we'll do good in thought, speech, and action. Why? Very simply, because when we've meditated and thought about the presence of God, that God is looking, he sees, he hears, he listens, he perceives, and knows what's going on deep down inside of us. As our sages in the Talmud said, and this is in Pirkei Avos, which by the way I'll be starting giving a class on that today, 12:45 on. Come and join on Zoom. and on Chabad CK Facebook. Stackable Shlosh Dvarim that reflect upon three things, and you won't come to do anything wrong. Our sages say, what is it? Know what is above you, an eye that sees and an ear that hears. So when we can meditate and think about that, and it becomes real for us, then we will be able to sense the connection, the deep connection that our soul experiences, and we'll have some sense of it. The proof of it will be, what does it do to our behavior? Like, the fact that I might feel something about God and something about a divine connection is what it does it lead me to. If it leads me to thereafter just, not doing something that is in a positive way, some kind of mitzvah, but it's just about, I don't know, my just feeling good, right? No, then that's a sign that you didn't get there. If it's about doing good, right, thereafter, then it's a sign that there was some kind of experience or feeling or sense, some kind of sense that you are being connected to the divine, to godliness, to God. Powerful idea. Something comes out of this that's quite interesting. These are Chabad teachings. Chabad, Chachma, Bina, V'das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. There's other type of Hasidic Jews, and besides, their dress, and besides maybe the way they conduct themselves socially with others, and I don't know, that's not even a beside. That's part and parcel of this idea that I'm going to present now. They are called Chagas Hasidim, which is an acronym for, as Chabad is wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. That's an acronym for kindness, chesed, gvura, tiferes, which are the emotions of loving kindness, power, strength, refrain, and beauty, compassion. And what is the difference between the two types of Chassidim in this respect over here? There's many different various distinctions, but this distinction over here is that Chagas Hasidim, these other Hasidic, they believe in their Rebbe, and he does the work, and they just have faith in him. That they're religious Jews, they're observant Jews, but they don't do the work that we just spoke about, because this is a lofty thing, to own your own divine connection, to own your own connection to God, is what we're talking about over here. How? By not allowing the body to have its say over you, to allow your soul, or to exert your soul to such a degree that you can, in a visceral way, sense a connection. That's owning your connection, owning your relationship. That is unique to Chabad. That's not demanded by others. I'll be quite frank and quite honest, by other Hasidic groups, because they'll study Talmud, and they'll have a nice inspirational thought of the day or teachings, which are great, and they'll inspire the soul. We're not talking about inspiring the soul over here. As the old saying of Benjamin Franklin goes, 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. We're talking about perspiring over here. And again, I'm not talking to anybody over here, but to myself, as I mentioned earlier, that this is not a simple task to really, to be able to focus on the teachings, and to make it visceral, make it real, make it that it's not just an abstract idea, but the presence of God in my life, in my world. We can see definitely the divine presence of God, which means the hashgacha, the way God is controlling things. I see that so viscerally of the divine providence on how one thing led to another and how the domino effect of everything in my day, not every, I shouldn't say that, everything, but so many things in my day, I sense the domino effect and that how it's being guided. That is an easier thing to do. And that's not what Alter Rebbe spoke about today. He didn't speak about that. Because that's sort of, that's easier to come to. But here we're talking about the exertion of the soul, that we actually ponder, we actually meditate, we actually think in this way. Again, I speak to myself because this is something that is a challenge for me. But as the Alter Rebbe says, the proof is in the pudding that when we do this, it will actually bring us to something visceral, something real. Das, this real sense of connection. It's not in the emotions, this feeling, because das is not emotions. It's sort of the mix between intelligence and emotions, right? Connectivity, not an emotional based one of feeling faith, but it is presence, realness of God. All right, heavy duty Fabringen today. Real Chabad Fabringen today. Anybody to share? Vilma, Batya, Rav Moshe. Yes, Batya.
This is very, 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 very good teaching today. It is easier, I think, maybe for some people or some personalities when it comes to like self-denial, body, like denying your animal soul, and by doing that, your animal soul achieving like a higher level as a result of doing that and focus. That is, for me personally, is it's a work in progress, but I'm not where I was before. But it's like using a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger you become in it, and you just have to do it in every area, whether it be food, whether it be focusing on your learning, whether it be really focusing on a mitzvah that you're doing and the intent behind it.
Right. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. That's very real. It's like a muscle, and that more we flex it, and the easier flexing over here was the first part, delayed gratification of not allowing the body to be to have complete dominion over us. That whenever we have a desire, that desire needs to be fulfilled. That is definitely an easier one, and the more difficult one is absolutely this idea that we just spoke about. Sorry, Vilma. I think Vilma, Crystal, just 1 second. I think Vilma, you wanted to share something.
I'll let Crystal, and then I'll say something.
Sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Hi. Good morning, and thank you for having me. I also have difficulty with this, and I think one of the things that I've found is to fuel that energy into something else. Getting that energy to instead of sitting down to eat, because I want all the desserts. Thinking about what I do other than all the desserts. Taking that energy and doing something for Hashem, or doing a mitzvah, or because I'm learning. There's a lot to learn, so I can always put that toward learning. So I that's what I do.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Yes. Vilma, go ahead.
So in my life experience, food was not like a priority for me. I've always been the kind of person that needs to be doing things, like whether it's exerting my like physical body or my mind. Otherwise I feel stagnant. I can't be like a stagnant pool of water. I have to be doing things. And in that exertion of my body or my mind, I can focus on, really hyper focus on whatever I'm learning, whether that's work related or like we're doing now, study of Torah. So I've learned to focus but I've also learned that I have to make time to eat because otherwise I forget. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. So,
and I've always maintained like a weight because of it, and it's not that I'm doing it on purpose. It's just that I forget it.
so we all have a different way that the body speaks to us and the animal soul controls us, right? So for some people, the animal soul will be not to eat because the animal soul, its self-aggrandizement is found in another manner and not by just simple pleasure, physical pleasure. It can be much more of an abstract pleasure. Right? You can have pleasure from the sweetness of an apple. You can have pleasure from the sweetness of a song, the sweetness of an idea, sweetness of a connection. All those things are, higher levels, but in the end, that's not the idea over here. Is about the visceral, palpable sense that we feel inside of us of the presence of God and that connection as a result. So that really is definitely of an effort to get to that place. We all need to. So give me just a moment over here. I want to bring up from Denise, when we count the Omer and we meditate on it, and also refining the body and the soul. So yeah, that's absolutely true. And a mitzvah, we do think and we do meditate. We're talking here about thinking and meditating in a way, again, that it's real. Just like, I just hit the table over here and made a sound. I felt it on my fist, and I saw it, right? So there was a sensory perception of it and feeling of it. We're talking about that it should be something on that level that we have some kind of perception of it, and that's the uniqueness of what the Alter Rebbe is teaching here. Again, this is not an easy thing, as I've mentioned. James, is it because of the past not cleared by tshuva remains imprinted in an emotional memory bank? Yes, James, very good. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It just means we have to exert ourselves much more. That's all. Which means the treasure is just, a bit deeper, but that means the treasure is there. Susan asks, I don't understand that the rabbi or that holy person does the work for them. How does that work? Oh, very good. Thank you. So what that means by other Hasidic groups is we're not talking about that they, the followers of that holy righteous person, they're observing Torah and mitzvahs. This is not about observance Torah and mitzvahs here. This is just a higher grade of connection. This is bringing a personal awareness, a personal sense, connection, a personal, what's the word I'm looking for? Feeling of godliness and being connected that, no one can give that to you. Can you live a Jewish life without that? Absolutely. Can you keep Shabbos, observe Shabbos, eat kosher, study Tanya, learn Chumash and whatever else without what we spoke about today? Oh, absolutely. You could live, you're good. You're good to go. It's a different level. This is much more, total ownership of your connection. See, if Torah and mitzvahs is more about, my obligations of fulfillment, right? And that's how we view it. So then you're good to go. You do, you observe everything that you need to observe. You do it, and you do it, to the nth degree. That's wonderful. It's not about obligation. This is about relationship. That there is a relationship. If it's about a relationship, so we're talking about a deepening of that relationship. So the righteous person has that, right? And by you being connected to that person, to that righteous person, you're a follower, you're a chassid of that person. So, they're going to get the experience. They're going to have that. And you, by holding onto their coattails, so to speak, you're going to get a little glimmer or something, an inspiration at least. You get the 1%. Here we're talking about the 99% of complete ownership. And that is what's unique over here. Without what we spoke about today, you could be an observant Jew, do good, you could be acts of loving kindness, and care for others and be there for others and study your Torah and being engaged and so on and so forth. And this is just to another level entirely. That's what I'm saying.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Vilma.
So, in order to establish this divine connection that leads to changed behavior, you're talking exactly about meditation of the mind and awareness that guides action. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's a meditation. It is a sense of, it's a meditation that brings to a sense of presence of God, that you feel it again in some manner that's real. That how do you know it's real? Because it changes your behavior. Just like when someone important walks into the room that I want to connect to, right? Someone important walks into the room that I really want to be connected to. They walk into the room, boy, do I, make sure that my shirt is straight and make sure my collar is, and that I'm, got the right smile on my face, and so on and so forth. I make sure of that. Why? Because I want to be connected. I don't want to be disconnected from that person. And and that's a subconscious thing, and maybe even a conscious thing that we do. So we're talking about having that. You don't have to do anything about that, by the way. When someone walks into your room when you're alone and they're important to you and you adore them, yes, you act differently unless you're too close to them, and then familiarity breeds contempt. But we're not talking about the contempt here. We're talking about you really adore them and you really want to be connected to them, so you really act differently, right?
Yeah.
Not talking about a loved one that is a family member who, unfortunately, this probably doesn't apply. But it should apply. It actually should be quite the opposite, and it will apply, by the way, if we follow this in our connection to God, in our relationship with God. Then we won't have the familiarity that will breed contempt of our loved ones, and their presence will actually bring us to act differently because we want to be connected to them and not disconnected. So imagine that, with God. You got to work on that. If I don't know who's an important person to you in your life, but I know if the Rebbe walked into the room, my room right over here now, oh my gosh, would I, I would, wow.
Well, there's no one more important than God in my mind. There's no one more important than God in my mind. Like, I think I sense what you're saying about respect and all that, but in my experience, there's no human being or person that I respect more than the concept of God. So I'm not afraid of people or like in that way. Like,
no,
of course,
I'm using that only as a metaphor, right? So don't get lost in the metaphor. It's only a metaphor to bring us to the analog, to God, exactly. But just imagine that person who you really like and want to get closer to, right? You want to get closer to. That person walks into the room. You're gonna first take a deep breath, and you got when you're gonna straighten out your shoulders and whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna, what I mean, consciously or subconsciously, whatever it is. Why? Because you want to connect and want to not be disconnected by anything you're going to do. You're not going to all of a sudden say a slur, and you're not going to say, you're not going to put your feet up on the table at that moment. You're going to do the opposite because of the presence. So if we can do that with God in our lives, that would be what we're talking about over here. That takes effort. That's not simple. But the Alter Rebbe believes that we could do it. The Alter Rebbe believes in me, and he believes in you. He believes in all of us, which is...
It's true. We can do it.
We can.
I know that when I've been in the presence of other holy people, like at the Chabad shul or at any, temple or synagogue, there is a holy presence among the people that, you know, and since I practice speaking a lot, I may curse sometimes in private, but when I'm around the people that like are holy and, you know, when I'm mindful of that, I can say and express the same thing without having to use any of that language.
Right.
Because I, you know, respect the whole place and the people, you know, there.
Exactly. Denise is asking, but shouldn't we be having the same intent when we are refining ourselves from the sins that cause in the spheres of Aimer? Yeah, it's not a very, you know, that's a brief thought, you know, when we're doing spheres of Aimer, and I don't think, you know, here it's going a bit beyond that, but it is, yeah, somewhat. There's a question for circles of life. I didn't see that. Bring it again. Can someone share with me? I know now that. Who could share with me? Hold on. Ari, Matilda, I missed them. Okay, I'm going to go back to some questions that I might have missed. Give me a moment here, folks. I hope there's question marks before them so I could notice that, because I don't see. Women should count the Omer. Yes. Counting of the Omer. So Lisa says, I know now that to always feel the soul first and the beast secondly, and to achieve a better divine connection. Well said. Thank you. Okay. I'm missing. So I might have had a question before, and now it seems like I don't see it here. So if someone wants to repeat the question. Florence says, I know now that I can seek a personal relationship with Hashem. Absolutely. All right. Anybody else? Sina, Gemma. Whoopsie. Gemma, Merle, if you'd like to share something, or anybody else we have over here on. We have Danny from Bogota on Instagram. Who else is with us? All right. Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't see those questions. So we will get back to. All right, folks. I think that's it for today. We will continue as we do every day, a novel teaching from the Alter Rebbe. Today, we could own our own relationship. Judaism, we have to own. That's from bar and bat mitzvah. From a girl 12 years old and a boy 13 years old, we start to own our duties. Our duties. Our duties to be fulfilled. Whether it's putting on tefillin, lighting Shabbos candles, you know, eating kosher, and so on. So that happens in 12 and 13. You start owning your duties. And it could remain there. Owning your duties. What your responsibilities are as a Jew. And for a non-Jew, the 7 Noachide laws. So here we're talking about far and above beyond owning your duties. You're owning the relationship.
So beautiful. We can own all our relationships.
Well, when we own this one, then it'll definitely will help us. It will not only help us, it will be the guide, the total guide on how we own our human relationships. And ultimately, believe it or not, that's what God wants. He doesn't want us to, you know, again, that's what it means that it's going to express itself in behavior. If there's a real owning of the relationship with God, then that has to translate itself, not in a holier than thou attitude, because then that's not owning your relationship. That's about you and your self-aggrandizement. that will mean is that you will own your interpersonal relationships with loved ones, with everyone, ultimately. That you'll own the relationship and do what it takes to enhance that relationship. All right, folks. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry that some people maybe asked some questions, but I did not see their question. A couple of people's questions. Again, put 2 question marks beforehand so I know it's a question. Also, if on Instagram, if you have a question, put 2 question marks and then state what you want. That way I know that I'm got to look at it, because we only have 157 comments so far on Facebook. So it's hard to be able to view them all. And I don't get to everybody to say hello to, because once we start, I only say hello to the people at the beginning, but we're going to say goodbye. All right, folks, thank you very much. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share the Tanya with you. For those that didn't get a chance to follow me or Chabad here on Clubhouse, please do. Also, those who are interested, today, 12 o'clock, Rabbi Mendy is going to start the Parsha. Our myeshiva.ca is returning back. Our yeshiva is back in full force. Today at 12 o'clock, 12:45, I will be doing Pirkei Avot. Actually, I think I'm going to do it on Clubhouse too. Yeah, Ethics of Our Fathers. That's great moral teachings. Will be 12:45, and we'll have it maybe on Instagram too, I think. Oh boy. And on Facebook. So please do come and join us. Again, myeshiva.ca. Daily learning, 12 to 1:30, Mondays through Friday. Wishing you a wonderful, great day. Be well.
Thank you, Rabbi. See you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you, Batya. And a big mazel